What's going on, everybody? Hope you're all doing well tonight, or today, or this morning. For those that are tuning in, thank you very much for watching my content. For those that watched the last video, I hope you all enjoyed. And yeah, look forward to having another great live tonight. So, for tonight, I have a really cool guest, Massawa. Thank you for your time for coming on. I really appreciate it. I think we'll get into some really interesting topics tonight. And yeah, I look forward to the upcoming hour. So, yeah, maybe if you wanna introduce yourself, Massawa.
Awesome, awesome. Hello, everybody. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all my Muslim folks. And first and foremost, thank you, Marcus, for having me. Definitely grateful. My name is Massawa, and clearly that name is from Eritrea, for those who don't know, and for those who do know as well. And it represents a special town in my ancestral country. So I'm born and raised in the U.S., Turtle Island, Abia Yala. So shout out to the land. And I'm just grateful to be here. I like to play basketball. I also just like to exercise in general. And I also like to talk about the world, especially Abya Yala. And for those who don't know what Abya Yala is, Abya Yala in the one of the indigenous languages of Panama, Abya Yala describes the Americas, so North and South America at the end of the day, including the Caribbean as well. So, I have a privilege of being in Abya Yala. It wasn't my choice. I was just born in Turtle Island, which is the USA. So, with that being said, I feel like it's important to just stress and emphasize the importance of fighting for justice in Abya Yala and Turtle Island. So, yeah,
Thanks a lot, Massawa. Appreciate you sharing that. Now, I think if I'm, mistaken, you grew up, kind of like on the East Coast, right? Or the East side of the US?
absolutely. Yeah, I'm basically about an hour or two from Philadelphia, a little north of that, and I'm not far from Jersey either.
Okay, cool, nice. I haven't had that much time, on the upper I guess you wouldn't say Northwest, but just like the East Coast, upper Northeast. So that's cool. I've heard some good things, yeah, about Philadelphia and yeah, definitely those states over there are pretty neat. Um, so yeah, so to the guests that are in and that are tuning in, this video is going to just be a little bit different. Just really going to focus on culture and travel, especially because as you can see, I've put up a lot of videos of where I've went, whether if that's been in China, in Dubai, in UAE, or even Guatemala or Peru, right? So yeah, this is kind of where we're going to talk about the international aspect, and I hope you guys really enjoy. But yeah, Masawa, I've seen a lot of your content, and you've been around quite a lot of places. So what really got your interest in wanting to travel? And I guess my other question to add on to that would be: have you went back, or not went back, but have you visited? I hope I don't mispronounce it right. Eritrea, Eritrea.
Great questions. So for Eritrea, basically, because there's multiple ways to pronounce it. To answer your question, I never even went there at all. Sadly, actually, random. I mean, not random fact. Side note, I should say, I never went to any part of Africa. It hurts. It really hurts. So yeah, but being a child of immigrants, honestly, it was just a norm to travel, and I'm grateful for that privilege because not everybody that's a child of immigrants, or just in general, people have had that opportunity. And then I'd say solo travel really started when I first went to Europe in 2021 in the fall. So in August, of 2021, that's when I left for Europe for 2 months. But beforehand, for at least a year or two, I was very angry and regretful about my basketball journey. And I was just like, oh my gosh, man, all these people from my country, they live in Europe and they get to play this level basketball because the competition's not good, blah, blah. That those thoughts were running in my mind. And it's true for the most part. Like, the people aren't bad at basketball in Europe, but it's nothing like where we come from. So they can still hoop, but it's just where we come from is the best in the world currently. Currently. So, I had that like really baggage, right? And then I finally put myself to action and I was like, okay, I'm going to buy a flight ticket for this day, blah, blah, blah. Well, no, my parents bought it. But pretty much, yeah, I bought a flight ticket. I mean, my family got me a flight ticket to a round trip to Germany, visited my family, went to Germany, Netherlands, spent a week in Spain, Barcelona specifically, and then really like I was supposed to focus on basketball, but I just focused on traveling. I'll be honest. But the good thing is, I came out with being able to use public transportation as a norm, falling in love with public transportation, and just loving the life without a car, and just learning a lot of stuff about solo travel and just self development as well. But more importantly, I got the regret out of my way, meaning I pretty much I reached out to coaches. I played a little bit of junior college basketball, so community college. So I told them, hey, blah, blah, blah. I'm in your country. I'm not far from your city at all. I played a small amount of junior college. I'm from the USA, and I'd be more than happy to come to a tryout. And as a result, I almost tried out for semi pro teams twice. And yeah, I had two opportunities. The only reasons those opportunities did not go to success is because of inevitable factors, which I can actually explain honestly. But it's not like, oh, I tried out and I failed. No, it's just I kind of couldn't even try out. So I'll happily answer that. But that's pretty much how I started. And then towards the end of that Europe journey, I that's when I went to Barcelona, and then I met certain people. Like I met a Chileno homie from Chile, and he's part Mapuche. Fun fact, but yeah. So pretty much, once I met him, and then I started listening to like at the time I was listening to a lot of reggaeton, and then eventually that made me be like, huh, I need to go to other parts of Abia Yala. So once I started going to Abia Yala often, I mean other parts of Abia Yala often, that's when I just got addicted to the cycle of like, oh, I want to go back. I want to go back. And then I started going to concerts. And then, friendships just went up exponentially. So in reality, that's how I kept on traveling so much to various places pretty much. And then yeah, afterwards I can definitely share like about the basketball like tryout situation as well. But that's how I in terms of traveling, it's pretty much how I got on the big cycle of traveling.
Oh, thanks for sharing that, Masao. And I think my question is before we get more into the traveling, I guess, bringing up the Abe Yayala and whatnot. Um, how did you find out, I guess, about IP? And like, because I know, I appreciate you sharing our content and everything. That's been really great to see. But I guess, yeah, I should have asked that in the beginning. So, yeah, how did you find out about us?
That's a yeah. I mean, I'm grateful for y'all content. So, at the end of the day, I'm grateful for y'all responses back too with positivity and joy and gratitude. So to answer your question, it's funny. I I don't know if I searched this up like after I was like watching this one podcast from this Chicano dude that I met. I'm not sure. Wow, my shadow's really showing whenever I move my hands, but oh well. But
That's okay.
not a bad thing. But basically, I know one moment I was like, okay, I was like, let me find a Mexican podcast initially, right? YouTube. Let me find a Texas podcast because I know they all in Texas and Cali too. But I was like, let me find something. And then eventually I was like, okay, I'm gonna try Indigenous podcast. Something tells me it's not gonna be a lot. But then so I typed in Indigenous podcast because that's what I really cared about. I really care about the top four countries is what I super duper care about. So like Bolivia, Peru, Guatemala, Mexico, like that's something that's really important to me. So I was like, okay, let me find out a way. So yeah, I typed in Indigenous podcast or something along those lines. And then I seen like you, Amalta, and Juan all in the same video for a couple of videos. And I was like, wow, they're talking about Masizaje and all that and blah 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 and assimilation. And then yeah, I checked out like half of like the hour long video. And then yeah, I started commenting and I was like, yo, they better have Instagram. And then from there I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. So and then luckily, that's how we ended up keeping in touch. And yeah, and actually, me, Juan and I also we get along super duper well. I know new Amauta, I think he gets like tons of messages, so I can see why he like probably didn't see mine, so I didn't take it the wrong way. But yeah, so that's how I ended up basically knowing the content of IP.
That's great. I'm really glad you took a strong interest to it. Yeah, it's funny that you speak of that video because I would say that's maybe our most popular video, aside from like the DNA videos that me and Juan did. If I ever get like a lot of feedback, it's usually from that specific video with me, Umauta, and Juan. So,
Well,
yeah, thank you for saying that. And yeah, you took an interest in the good countries. Yeah, Peru, Bolivia, and Mexico, and, Guatemala. Um, so I guess, yeah, it's been a long, ride since we started. So, I appreciate the comments that you said as well. And, I guess kind of to add on to that, what, what country I guess, have you been to Guatemala or Bolivia? I know you've been to Mexico, but, how many
um,
countries the Americas have you been to?
great question. So in
Yeah.
the Americas and Abya Yala, I'd say 7 through 11. So
Wow.
Jamaica, Canada, which I'm grateful for, and yeah, actually, I'm not gonna lie. 7 through 11, I'm grateful for the opportunity. Now I'm looking back, I'm like, that's a high amount. Like I don't like to say that's a high amount, but I'm saying out of gratitude. So yeah, I forgot like it makes me appreciate things in life. So with that being said, Canada, Jamaica, and then the DR, PR, they earned their own country, so they are their own country. However, due to injustice, one could argue that they're part of the U.S. So depending on how you look at it, but I'll still count them anyway, just out of respect. So Canada, Jamaica, um, the PR, Borinquen. So I'm gonna use the other hand. Okay, so Borinquen, Puerto Rico, and then the DR. Okay, so that's all. And then afterwards, the more so indigenous countries, I'd say. Okay, U.S. is five. So indigenous land, Abya Yala, Mexico, um, Honduras, Mexico, Honduras. What else? Chile, Colombia, Brazil. So I'd say 5 and 5. I'd say yeah, maybe. Oh wait. One could argue Panama because I've been there for 2 layovers, but I don't think that counts. So instead of saying 11, including Panama, let's just say I've been to 10 parts of Abya Yala, most of which were Spanish-speaking countries.
That's great. I mean, I would count Panama only because, like, when I've been to Asia, around 10 times, and I always end a good portion of my layovers between connections are in Japan,
Wow.
and sometimes, yeah, in Tokyo. But during the layover, I don't get enough time to, like, really go into Tokyo, so I always just kind of, like, count it. Plus, like, sometimes I'll, like, leave the airport just for, like, a few minutes to get, like, 100 feet outside the airport only to walk back in later because my time is, like, so much short. Only because I could say, like, "Oh, finally, I breathed the air. I've made it here." So, you could kind of count that. So, you could count Panama, why not? But,
Thank you.
I guess it just depends on perspective. But yeah, that's great that you've been to all those countries. I guess my other question was also, did you have a culture shock, more of a culture shock when went into countries in the Abya or when you started in Europe? Because I think with me, the first country I went to on my own was a country called Georgia. It's a beautiful country. I don't know if that's not like the usual beginners tour tourist countries. So
Mhm.
it was quite a cultural shock for me, I would say. Um, so did you feel that way when you went to the, I guess, more so Western, European countries? Or was it more so when you got into, like, Brazil, Chile, you were like, "Oh gosh, this is really different."
Um, that is a great question. I'd have to say, like, yeah, for some reason, I don't remember any culture shocks in Western Europe, although that was my first solo trips. So that's a great question, especially because it was very similar to the US. And also, I was in the cities. So I was like, how come I'm not experiencing racism or anything? And then I was like, oh, wait, I'm in the cities. You know what I mean? So yeah, it just felt like my part of the US because I don't really typically have to worry about racism in my part of the US. But the culture shock, I'd say I experienced it in many parts of Abya Yala, mainly because, like, oh my gosh, bro, you being an indigenous brother in Georgia, you're dang near Turkey. You're dang like you're near Armenia. You're probably near Iran and Azerbaijan. So and probably near Russia. So you're an indigenous brother traveling, and you're also how can I say it? American, yes, but we are both gringos, which is not a problem. So we are both gringos, U.S. citizens, and you're indigenous. You have so many things that are not common in Georgia. So that way you felt I could relate to that in many parts of Mexico. So basically, I felt like a superstar, like in so many ways. That was a culture shock. Like I wasn't surprised because I expected that in parts of Europe, and my brother experienced that in Europe and even in the U.S., like Wyoming. But when I say culture shock, I experienced that in Mexico because man, I felt like a superstar.
That's great. You felt like a superstar, man. But yeah, thanks for saying that about yeah, Georgia. Yeah, I think it was towards the end of my trip. I was like, oh my gosh, I finally heard two Americans speaking English. So yeah, it was definitely quite a different world, and that was in 2011. So time was
Wow.
a little bit different back then. Um,
Pardon
so
me. Can I bring up something real quick that I forgot to ask?
sure, yeah.
Thanks. I didn't want to interrupt, but I gotta say, how did you deal with the alphabets, the script?
So with the that's a good question because it's not like Cyrillic because it was like a part of the Soviet Union at one time. They have their own like very unique language. So I would say that I had my friend with me who I consider like my brother. Um, and he was with me nearly the entire time. So there was never a moment where I was like lost, fortunately, right? Um, but I would say that that language is if you're someone that doesn't really have any friends there, that it might be a little bit harder to navigate if you don't have like pals or anyone there. Simply because Georgia has only been a country for, I mean, it existed long before the integration into Russia. Um, but it's not an extremely well known country, and so it's been able to maintain its own distinct cultural world without much disturbance, I guess you could say. So the language has been there, their culture has been there forever. Where if we were like another country, like a Western country, it'd be a little bit different. You'd see more English, right? Um, so I would say I didn't run into too many issues. But again, like if you're someone that's new there, then might be a little bit hard. But I think you can navigate because everyone that I ran into was very friendly. I think the younger generations can understand English, pretty well.
Wow.
Again, I haven't been there for a long time, but I would believe that they would. So, yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about that country. So I'm sure if you had a question, wanted to ask someone, like maybe with a little bit of like direction or help, then they would be willing to help you. So,
In 2011, by the way,
yeah,
and you're saying that. That's impressive.
yeah, yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I was like, I think I was like 19 or 20 at the time. So yeah, I was like a young guy. I was just like venturing out. So I would recommend it if you ever wanted like a really unique experience, and that would be the place to go, especially now with like what's going on in the world, like with Ukraine and Russia. Um, there's a lot of Russians that are I think, pouring into Georgia, which I think majority of the Russians there are finding ways to find jobs, and it improves the country's economy. So I think you're seeing a lot more changes than back in 2011. So yeah, that country itself is very special, I would say, to me. So yeah, so that's a good question, Massawa. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Like of all places, right? And I'm not gonna wait. It sounds like you're based on our conversations before, you're from the state of Illinois, right?
Yeah, I'm from the state of Illinois. I guess I can share it because I think it's not
Oh,
hard to find. Sorry.
that would be perfect actually. Yeah, I forgot to ask you to ask you the questions back. I have a habit of that, but I just got excited. You know what I mean?
It's all right. No worries. Yeah, yeah. No worry. You can always ask me anything. So, but yeah, I grew up in Illinois. I grew up in a city um, called Springfield, and that was my hometown. Well, outside of Springfield, but I basically can call Springfield my home, and, so, yeah,
Definitely.
most of my life, I grew up in the Midwest, and, it was interesting. It was fun, I'm fortunate to have had that life because I'm not sure if I'm sure maybe you know, or if you don't, then I was adopted. I was born in Peru, then raised in the United States. So that's where my life, was for a majority of it. And, yeah, I it would have been a different experience, maybe a unique one to maybe growing up in, like, New York City or California, or even Arizona, but I'm content with what where I came from over there. So, yeah, it's, there's not too much in terms of, like, different like a giant meshing of, like, different cultures. So, I didn't get to experience it that much or maybe as much as I would have wanted to, but, um, that's where the traveling comes in, right? That's what one of the reasons, I guess, why maybe I explored so many places, to get that feeling, that experience, because at the end of the day, life is, can be quite short, and you really want to make the most of it. And in my opinion, I think that, yeah, you could, you know, go into working and just focus on your life, get married, which is, that's great for you if you choose that path. But I think in this day and age, it is good to get out and see what life is like outside the US. It really opened my eyes a lot. And basically, everyone that I've met that have managed to get out, and rather if that's Europe or even Mexico or Canada right next to us, but especially like South America or Asia, they've always had positive responses, right? And plus, it's the memories I think too that you'll hold on to for the rest of your life until the end. That's what really is important. I think that matters a lot. I would say. But maybe I'm talking too much. But yeah,
No, what
thanks.
this is so relatable. Don't even think that way.
Yeah, thanks. But yeah, so that's what I would recommend to those people that are like tuning in that are kind of curious. Yeah, if you have the ability to, I would recommend at least going somewhere in your life, because it does open your eyes. The U.S. Despite some imperfections compared to like the rest of the world, and a lot what I've seen outside of the U.S., a lot of us are doing relatively well compared to those that are living in like less fortunate situations. I would say even those that are not doing so good here are doing a lot better than a lot of other people in certain other countries, whether that's in Asia, South America, or Africa. Um, so yeah, it definitely gave me a better perspective on life in the world. Um, I would say, but yeah, so it's nice to meet someone else that has also been to a lot of places too. But
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah,
So,
were you gonna ask another question that you had about Georgia or like somewhere?
I could comment briefly on Georgia. Could
Sure.
um, actually, I was gonna piggyback off the fact that you mentioned what you mentioned about just how almost everybody's life in the USA is like dimensionally like incomparable to others. Like in a way, like in terms of like we have a lot to be grateful for. So I was gonna piggyback off that. Before that, I just want to say my one friend, well, one of my few friends that actually been to Georgia outside of yourself, he maybe like 2016. He's a tall, all right, he's like 6'3", dark skinned guy whose family's from Cameroon. So he went to college in PA, so we're from the same area. And yeah, he told me people were like trying to take pictures with him and stuff, but that's another thing for another topic. But basically, he was of course in the capital, I think, Tbilisi. I don't know how to say it, but please tell me how to say it.
I think it's Tbilisi, but you got it for the most part.
Ah, cool, cool.
Yeah.
Tbilisi, incredible. Um, yeah, so he mentioned that, and then, but yeah, related to the one thing that we were just talking about, I'll say like that reminds me of just seeing travelers in general in other countries. So I know you and I, like, we're typically the type of people who, if we see travelers, like, no, no, typically, like, when we travel, we try to hang out with the locals as much as possible. I can tell that's just how we both rock. Um, but whenever you do see like travelers, if you're in a hostel or just somewhere, just in an environment where you like see people from the USA or just other Western countries like the Europe and stuff or Canada. What's your experience with them? Like I have mostly good experience with them, and it depends where you go. But I'm really curious. I feel like based on the places you went, you probably had a good experience with them because most of the travelers that go to those places are like really cool, open-minded people. You know what I mean? So definitely want to hear your thoughts.
Sure. Just to kind of recheck again, you asked if what's my experience about like the specific countries or just like with which ones again? I'm sorry. I was reading through the comments and I was like trying to listen to you at the same time. So
Nope.
you
I
mind?
forgot their comments actually. Yeah, I'm about to check them out later. But pretty much the travelers you met, the like at least the travelers from similar areas as us, like not from the first world because I don't like that term, but
Sure.
basically from what people consider the first world. When you seen those travelers, what was your experience with them?
I would say pretty well, actually. Um, we're talking about travelers just like from the West, maybe, right? Or like travelers that we've met from like Europe or like the US. Like, you mean those travelers that maybe we happen to meet in like other countries like Guatemala or like Mexico or like certain like other countries in Asia, like Cambodia, Philippines. Um, yeah. So my interactions with travelers from Europe that I've met in other countries have been pretty good. I would say I'm like friends with them on WhatsApp. I don't talk to them that much, but I've at first like sometimes when I'd be in hostels and whatnot, and I'd meet like other fellow Westerners, if we call them that. I'd be like, oh, okay, they seem nice, I guess. But then, you know, surprisingly, when you really get down to meet someone, um, you have good experiences, I would say. Maybe, and maybe that's not everyone's, but I would say for the most part, I've had good experiences. Yeah, with people that I've met from the US that I was traveling to Mexico. Um, Maybe there's some others that you would run into that maybe you're a little bit want to be more secluded or not so social, and that's fine. But yeah, I've met people in. I met a couple, Dutch couple in Peru. They were really nice. I met an American guy from California when I was in Guatemala, and we pretty much like hiked together for like 2 days. And I just happened to like randomly meet him. I remember me and him were like walking in Guatemala, and this is before I like actually met him. I just happened to run into him, and we were both like walking in the same like path for about a good mile, but I was like behind him, and then I just said, "I was like, hey, I promise I'm not like following you." And then, yeah, we talked and we became friends during that trip, and so yeah, I've had good interactions for the most part. Trying to think, China, Thailand. Yeah, some people maybe just want a little bit of small talk, and that's fine, but that's okay too. I hope that answered your question, Massawa, or I hope that was clear. If that
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah, no, you answered it very well, and that's a relatable experience. I'm not gonna lie though. I'm about to reply to something real quick.
Sure.
All right.
Someone that
What was that?
oh, sorry. You're responding to one of the comments?
I'm about to. Yeah. Let's see.
There was one here. Would you mind coming to a not a coincidence channel one day? We discussed sure, yeah, I'd be down. I've never heard of that channel. Maybe I have. I know a lot of channels, so, yeah, I'd be interested in coming.
I
This
wasn't
one
laughing
says
at Shot Sun, by the way. I wasn't laughing at Shot Sun.
oh, no, no, you're good. No
All right.
worries. So this one here, the tourist attractions of any country have mostly friendly, open-minded. Other places in the same country, there will be yeah,
I think you got to define nativist in this case. Was
that's a
one?
good question.
Yeah.
I think nativist is just relating or supporting the policy of protecting the interest of native born or established inhabitants of those immigrants.
Okay. I had
So,
a feeling. Yeah, because not I'm happy he said that because like I'm assuming he's like implying that like the gentrification in like many countries is horrific, and I was gonna say that's absolute facts. I do gotta click one one comment real quick.
sure. Which one?
The no more pretendians.
Oh, no.
All right, I mean this comment is true. Now, I don't know if it's just saying that in general, but if it's towards me, I'm just like,
I don't
I
think it's towards you.
okay. Oh, then my apologies. But
I know.
yeah, but yeah, I trust that. I don't think it's towards me either.
Yeah, no,
Um,
my
but
guests are pretty nice.
oh,
Sorry.
awesome, awesome. My fault then. But cool. But yeah, I'll admit, like, all right, where do I start? To be direct, yeah, just look at TikTok for example. There's a lot of pretendians, and I'll say this: pretendians, no matter what, I don't support it. But I'll say the two categories that happen to be the case. All right, so you'll notice like Black Americans sometimes, some of them will be pretendians, and then white. Okay, good. I can actually say this on StreamYard. So white folks will also be pretendians. So of course I don't agree with both types of pretendians, but you know who's really the worst? You already know, and it's obvious. The white pretendians steal so many benefits, and they had such a crazy history of just oh my. I can go on and on about that, but yeah, it's real, man. It sucks, dude. So I'm glad she commented that because I definitely agree with Victoria on that. Honestly, um, yeah, for real.
Yeah, I would say that definitely the either if it's Canadians or Americans, the white Americans or white Canadians that have been able to establish themselves in a position of power in universities or any other higher institutions um, are definitely responsible for the pretendian. I was about to use a choice word, just a pretendian mess, I will say. And yeah, because I actually, me and it was me and Juan, but I made a video, and Juan, if you were in this, and you did make it with me, but it was about a woman. Oh gosh, I forgot her name. It's been so long, but she was a Canadian woman who worked in an institution, and she said that she was Indigenous, and I'm pretty sure she got a lot of money and benefits. And then some people who were very curious about her stance did some information digging and research and found out that she didn't have any Indigenous ancestors at all. So she had been collecting money and, stealing, doing all these things. And she is an example of a woman who is in a higher establishment and a position of power that is abusing the system. So yeah, no, you make a valid point, um, sorry about that because yeah, that's true. I think as more people become aware of this, or maybe not so much more aware because I think a lot of people know, but just now that this is more out in the open, these problems, I think it's easier to catch it before it gets worse, before like money is wrongfully distributed to someone that really doesn't have those connections at all or isn't a part of a community. Um, so yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and yeah, it was nice to see the comment about yeah, no pretendians.
Yes, indeed. You said facts right there. I actually want to bring up a side note. You know what sucks in my experience?
What's that?
When I talk to some people from New Zealand or Australia, I think Australia, not New Zealand, people like, yeah, no, obvious white people, at least two of them or three of them will be like, yeah, we're all indigenous. But like, because like, it's part of us, right? The thing is, like, I can understand if like, yo, like people would be like, yo, like I'm part indigenous, and like blah blah blah. But like based on the specific conversations I had, you could tell that it's a narrative that too many of the white people have. Now, I definitely agree. Like, there, out of the indigenous people in certain countries in general, there are a significant amount of them who happen to be white presenting. That's I'm not even coming at them because I totally get that. I have white presenting people in my family, so I totally get it. But you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say like certain white people, like you know exactly what I'm trying to say. Hard to explain, but I think you know what I'm saying, right?
I think I understand where you're coming from, and I know like different communities, and I know very little about the indigenous population in um, over in New Zealand and the Oceania. Um, do have really sometimes specific uh, rules or like views on who is indigenous and who's not. And this kind of brings me back to someone that I interviewed that was from that was also of Mapuche descent, and
Wow.
yeah, yeah, it was a long time ago. Um, I was glad to have her on, but she said something in the end that I was a little bit surprised to hear. I mean, it's what they view, so it's just my own personal like thoughts. But she had said that even if you're not indigenous, you would still be seen as Mapuche, or you could be of like a different like nationality, but you would still be seen as that.
Wow.
So that was a little bit. I just didn't understand it. I guess it was a little bit confusing because I didn't know if like what are you adopted into the community, or are you just if you support the cause of like Mapuche people or people in Chile who indigenous people in Chile who are abused um, by the government there. uh, like if let's say for example I'm a German guy that lives there, and but I support Mapuche people, but I'm also viewed as Mapuche too. So I'm curious, but I don't want to get too much into the weeds of that, only because I really just don't know. It's just my own thoughts from my perspective. Like you're free to talk about it more, but it's a little bit confusing to me, I would say. But
Wow.
yeah. So that kind of goes back to what you said. Like yeah, so a lot. You might see someone, yeah, that looks maybe mostly European or heck, mostly Chinese or something, right? And to be like, yeah, I'm a Poochie, and then you're like, huh? Or like, yeah, I'm indigenous to here, and then you have kind of a little bit uncertain, but um, yeah, I know different communities and different tribes have different views on who is indigenous and who's not. And yeah, some people are adopted into the community, but yeah, I see where you're coming from, though.
I like that. Yeah, we're on the same page. Yeah, and I'm about to bring up a couple of brief examples, and then afterwards, I'm going to mention this biracial guy in Chile because we talked about Mapuche. Well, I definitely trust that. I can believe that Mapuche society they probably view it that way, but I heard when I was just listening to native podcast. I mean, a native TikTok live session that some of my friends were on the panel, and I don't know if I was in the panel or not, just chilling, but I noticed that they were saying Cherokee, in the East Coast, like in other places, but the Cherokee apparently they're more lenient on who they let in. But this lady, this Afro Mexican, who's so most Afro Mexicans or all of them are indigenous as well. So she's Afro Indigenous, and she was saying like Diné, she has Diné in her, right? So the Diné people, I hope so. It's like Dine, but the I has like a specific accent on it. So those specific people, I think you have to be a quarter or half to still be in it. So she is still Diné because of the fact that she's either a quarter or a half. And then I forgot yeah, they were just discussing like how the rules on certain tribes. So I thought that was cool to learn. But then like you said, when we talked about Mapuche and Mapundugun, I read this article like years ago about this guy who is half. I mean, one of his parents was from Haiti, so Haiti, and then the other parent of his was Mapuche. And Chile has a super super small percentage of black people, and almost all of them are black immigrants. Very few of them are Afro Chilenos from Arica or something. So with that being said, he was one of the few black or half black people. But in school, he was mainly he's an athlete. He's a famous athlete. I forgot his name, but in school, most of the discrimination he went through was for being Mapuche. He's half black, visibly black, but his discrimination was for being Mapuche. Like I don't wish discrimination upon anybody, but it's just the fact that wow, just wow to say the least. It goes back that much. Wow. Because, we're used to black people, typically in most places on earth, feeling the more of the racism, but like, depending where you are. But like, wow. Just wow.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. This was all the way in Chile. Ooh, yeah, I, that's hard.
Really? Oh, by the way, I'm reading a comment, by the way.
Sure.
Shout I think his name's Thomas. So if it's Thomas, shout out to Thomas because yes, when you literally said Dinet or the Navajo, I agree. And thank you for saying that because I learned like yesterday that Navajo means knife, but that's not even like the name that that the Dinet gave themselves. So Dinet is their actual name that they gave themselves, not the name from the oppressor. Um, I learned that yesterday from Ricardo Ignacio, New Amauta, or both of them, one or two of them, I believe. I learned that from, and then Apache and Yaki are related group. Yep, that's right. I like how one of my homies, well, one of my TikTok friends, he's Yaki. His roots are from Sonora. But yeah, you said it right on point. So I love the comment section honestly. But yeah. Oh, before I
Mm.
forget, yeah, whichever topic you want to talk about, feel free. My apologies if I got too passionate about certain things.
Oh no, you're good. I'm glad that you shared that. You know that it's really, yeah, crazy to see just how different, yeah, the world is, and like injustices that happen, and then just obviously like ongoing like racism that really surprises us too. Um, so yeah, I'm glad that you shared that. That was really surprising,
For real.
truly. Yeah,
Thank you though.
yeah, of course. Um, so I guess, yep. My next question was more so, and then just kind of following the script a little bit. Just what would you say overall was your best experience about just traveling, and then maybe what was the most difficult you faced?
Great one.
Yeah.
First, I'll say one could argue Happy Independence Day. One could say Happy Independence Day to Mexico and to Central America yesterday, because that's this relates to the answer of your question. So, but one could also say, why say Happy Independence Day when the indigenous people aren't free, as well as the Afro Indigenous people and the Afro descendants over there? One could argue they're not free, they're not going through justice. But now that we're on the indigenous topic, the indigenous people, are they really free? Are they really away from oppression? No. So some people do say, I don't care about Independence Day. So as somebody who's not indigenous at all, I just don't know what to say to that. But I will say, at least Independence Day always brings some success compared to no success. So with that being said, I have two Mexican flags. Here is a part of my Mexican flag because me and Mexico, we rock heavy. Um, yeah, so this
Okay.
is yeah, and then
Nice.
thank you. I got
Yeah.
an awesome price too. I won't share the price here, but I will share it with you privately. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful. Yeah. So if I had like a computer or something, I could easily just hold up the flag. And then another brief thing I want to share. I was gonna wear this at a parade, but my time management skills weren't that good. But this is Honduras. Hold on.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so this is a little baseball jersey. So pretty much yeah, from the Honduras. Got it in San Pedro Sula. I didn't go to the beaches like most people do, but next time I'd be more than happy to. But to answer your question, okay. I hope everybody enjoyed their Independence Day festivities, Central America, Mexico. But the best part, Mexico. I'm always nostalgic, especially through the music. I got to meet some of my favorite artists, and I got to see some of my favorite artists. I have some funny moments as well. And random fact, I was always the only black guy there, let alone being one of the few or the only USA folks there, gringos there. So I easily stood out. I was the only person that had a Mexican flag at these concerts, so I was easy to recognize. Um, yeah, and people shouted me out like within our own group chat. Shout out to saludos a El Malia. Él es de Valle de Chalco de Estado de Mexico, cerca de Ciudad de Neza y Iztapalapa y Iztapaluca. So yeah, shout out to my guy El Malia. Um, yeah, he's a real one. He even shouted me out in this group, so we're in a group chat. But
Cool.
yeah, he's really taking over Mexican reggaeton. And I tell you, like, oh, we have to. Oh, can you do me a favor? Since you have a computer and I don't, are you fine with writing down or typing in Google Docs Mexican reggaeton and Mexican dembow?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because I can't do that. Because I don't know what the consequences will be if I like flip this app. But thank you. Um, yeah, it's just yeah. I'm so passionate about that. But basically, Mexico, because there are border brothers, there are neighbors, and yeah, I have a lot of history with them. So Mexico, for a fact, that was my best experience. One could also argue like an honorable mention was Honduras, because man, it's like being in Mexico but in Central America. And then guess what? If you want to go to a part where you see a lot of black people, awesome. You can go to the coast or even San Pedro Sula. You'll see a lot of black people and a lot of mezcla gente, so indigenous people or partially indigenous people. I never went to Tegucigalpa, but I heard there's not that many black people there, but it's still diversity. Um, so yeah, they got a variety of things in Honduras. What else? And I just like their diversity. But it's like, imagine if Mexico actually had merengue and bachata. There you go, because Mexico almost never plays that. So yeah, it was a lot of things I liked about Honduras. So now, what was the worst or most challenging part? That's a tough one. I'll admit I don't know the answer, but one thing I could list as one of them is, you know what? I might have to come back to that because I don't know it off the top of my head.
Sure, no worries. I'm glad you got to go to Honduras though, because I know in the media, Honduras is perceived as, a little bit not as safe, right? Maybe a little um, dangerous. But you went there and you got to experience what life was like in Honduras, and it
Thank you.
sounds like for the most part you really enjoyed it. Um,
Before I
so
forget, I do agree. That's the info we know about it. I'm not gonna lie though. I was in murder capital. Like I was in a safe district, not a problem. I felt safe, but like at one point, maybe 2017, San Pedro Sula was murder capital of the world. Um, but I met a homie there at the end of the day. So like I met him beforehand, and then I was like, yeah, I'm gonna visit New Honduras. So I have no regrets. I knew I had to go there. So yeah, and I felt completely safe. But it's because of the part I went to, obviously. But like you said, that country and especially that city, yeah, the history's real. Let's just say that.
yeah, it's sad. But I've heard El Salvador has drastically improved a lot from the past like decade, which is good. As far as I know, it's improved. And so hopefully, Honduras will also improve too, I think within time. Um, no, someone said a comment here. Five
Fair.
tribes and thousands of $5 Indians who bought their way onto the federal controlled enrollment. Yep, kind of what we were talking about during the 70s. Five tribes, blood, and most fakers out.
That's so
Okay.
true. It really hurts, but that was an important comment from Thomas. And shout out to Oklahoma because the diversity is real there.
Yeah. Thanks, Thomas, for sharing that.
Thank you, Thomas.
And I think there was one more, just so you know, not a coincidence. It calls out pretendians, just like
Incredible.
Wabos, and guests are hostile. All right.
Whoa.
Be aware of that.
Yeah, no, that's important to see too. So I'm glad. Oh, thank you for yeah, I appreciate La Bandera. Thanks for the comment about the flag.
Yeah.
Oh,
Definitely. Yeah. Thanks, Thomas, for those comments. Appreciate it.
real.
Um, so yeah, I was curious about that because in terms of like what obstacles you might have faced, because like you've been to quite a lot of countries, I think probably more than me. So
Oh
that's
snap.
great. Yeah, you've been able to. Yeah, I mean, you went to a lot of countries. And how many? What's the total number of countries you went to in Europe? Was it like you were in
Four.
Spain, right? Huh?
You're correct, but the answer is four. I think it's four.
Or okay, that's good.
Well, all right. All right. Good thing this podcast is like roughly an hour long or more. So because of that, I think most people, how can I say, if most people want to find out how many countries I've been to, they would have to watch the whole thing of this video, which is a good thing. So I don't mind telling you how many countries I've been to. Normally, I try to keep that on a low, but since we're in a podcast, like most people won't know how many. You know what I mean? Well, nah, people will view the podcast, but you know what I'm trying to say. So basically, I think I've been to 16 or 19 countries. I don't know. How about yourself?
I think total I've been to 16. If you count
Incredible.
layovers, though, it could be 17 or 18.
I get really
Yeah, yeah, but,
like when I accidentally went to Switzerland. So I totally get it.
Yeah, that's cool. I was in a layover in Switzerland. It's a nice airport there.
Huh.
Um, yeah, yeah. I've been to Europe a little bit too. I've been to the United Kingdom in Germany. Um, Georgia, I kind of over time I viewed more so as a country in Western Asia, only because it's just so unique and different compared to the rest of Europe, I would say. Um, but also, it's as far as I know, it's a transcontinental country, so it's kind of in between Europe and Asia. But yeah, what's funny is I'm actually going there next week.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, yeah, it's after like 13 years. So yeah, I'll be going there soon. Actually,
For
I'll
how
try to
long?
put a video up. So yeah.
Please do, but for how long?
Oh, it's so short, unfortunately, just because of like things going on. I mean, just work, is a little bit hard. But I would say 5, no, no, no. It's about 4 days, I would say. So it's short.
Oh,
Yeah, it's one of my shorter trips, but able to go there and yeah, see my friend after not seeing him for a while. So yeah, it'll be good to go there. But anyway, I think we kind of, I know we wanted to keep it under an hour because I want to be considerate of your time,
oh,
Massawa. But
I mean, depending on your schedule, I mean, I'm fine with an hour or slightly longer. It just depends on your schedule. But for me,
okay.
it does no harm. Promise.
Cool. Well, appreciate you saying that. Yeah, so then let's kind of maybe discuss like the events that are kind of going on in the world because I've seen your Instagram and I think yeah TikTok too, but you seem pretty passionate about what's going on in the Middle East right now in terms of yeah Palestine and Israel. So it's just kind of like what curious what your views were on that for the most part, but you seem very supportive for the cause that's happening there.
Yeah, no, you said it right on the ball. And I'm not even saying this because, yeah, I have bias because Palestinians, they are my neighbors from the Red Sea. But even without that, it's like over 75 years, man, to say the least. But I'm glad that I know for a fact Palestine will be free. But at the end of the day, this wait for justice is just so long at the end of the day. So, yeah, there's so many things I can say, but
Sure.
well, yeah, it's unbelievable to say the least. But I'm grateful that more of the positive people in life, the good human beings, are like getting together.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I would say also, it's terrible, what's happening. So, in my honest opinion, um, and I haven't talked too much about the conflict in Palestine and Israel, but I really hope that Palestine and Israel there can be peace and it can be recognized as a country as it should be. I mean, and then there's no more killing, right? I think that's what everyone wants. And then things can kind of move on in life, and hopefully both societies can rebuild. Palestine, the people there can have their cities rebuilt, and then things will be okay. I like to be optimistic about that because it's sad what's happening, right? Because at the end of the day, everyone just wants to live their life in peace, right? And not face these problems. So I like to believe so, at least. Um, and then, like, I guess my thoughts on the issue with Russia and Ukraine as well. I also hope that I hope there can be peace. That's even more scary. I think
Oh yeah,
we could go into that, but
yeah.
I,
If you like,
I
feel free.
huh?
If you like, feel free. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'll say. I mean, I think with the upcoming election, yeah, I'm just not optimistic of what's going to happen because um, on one side, if we look at Donald Trump, he said that if he wins, he'll get that war over with before he becomes president. But here's what I believe what will happen if he wins. I think he's going to give Ukraine probably an ultimatum saying, hey, Ukraine, you guys need to stop, accept the territorial losses. And if you don't, we're just going to stop supporting you guys. We're going to stop supporting Ukraine. We'll pull out, no more money. So then I think Europe will, I don't see Western Europe giving up and just saying, okay, because I feel that Western Europe is much more close with Ukraine than the United States is. Obviously, the US has only been around for 200 years. Those other countries have been around for far much longer and have a closer connection than us. But then if Kamala wins, if Kamala Harris wins, then I think the war will go on. But I don't think Putin takes her seriously.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my honest opinion because he said jokingly that he would vote for her if he
Well,
was
actually,
yeah,
that
yeah,
raises a question, though.
yeah. I don't
Wow.
think which means that he doesn't respect her. Um,
Mhm.
and I don't. And Kamala said that she supports Ukraine 100%. That means the war will go on. It will escalate. I think that is the grim reality of what's going to happen, uh, which again is sad. Um, but I think the future is we're going to go through some rough spots if you're in the West, if you're in the U.S. or Europe. Yeah, it's so yeah. That's pretty much what I wanted to say. But
Yeah.
yeah, glad
I
we're
know.
here.
Absolutely right. And I needed to hear that. I gotta admit, though, that's so relevant to this question I'm gonna ask. Who all right, I'm gonna ask you something. I'm gonna show you something.
Sure.
Who are you gonna vote for? I'm not judging your answer. And another thing, random fact, I'm wearing a shirt that says, okay, you can't really it's hard to see, so basically you can see the
Let
most
me try
important
to.
part.
I'll
Huh?
try to
Oh,
zoom in
okay,
the
that's right.
screen really quick. Yeah.
All right, so
Pope Francis stands with Palestine. Okay. Cool. So do I.
yeah. So but yeah, I had to show that. But who are you voting for?
With all due respect, I think I'm still evaluating everything that's going on because I watched the debate last time and I thought I knew who I wanted to vote for, but then after that debate happened, I'm reevaluating a little bit. So that's my most honest opinion I think I could give you right now. Yeah, I think I want to just see how things go because again, that specific conflict that's happening right now, uh, yeah, that is a large connection to how the rest of the next 4 years is going to go for us as people that live in the U.S. And they're whoever's going to put their support into it. But ultimately, though, if Trump wins, and he pulls out the support for Ukraine, then we're just kind of on our own. But yeah, but still, conflicts will rise, right? There's other things in the world right now, like I said, in the Middle East and in Asia, um, that do concern me. That it gives me great concern. I think um, because this administration, I think either one, yeah, it's going to give us a little bit of a rough time. I would say. I think, but in a way, I think the writing is somewhat on the wall. I would say that we are going to enter, I think, a little bit, yeah, more of a difficult time in this decade. Because then you have Asia, right? And you have like China, which I think that our country views a similar way as when the Cold War happened with Soviet Union. But I think it's actually quite much more than just the Soviet Union because the times of the Soviet Union and the US, the Soviet Union was not that strong as an economic power as what China is right now. So the US views China as a major economic power that could possibly over
Wow.
pass us, right? I mean, we're a competitive nation, but um yeah, I mean, like I think maybe we could have this talk definitely more because it is reaching an hour.
Oh yeah.
But I think I think our country and our leaders don't like someone seeing us pass us, especially when it's from someone that we view very much almost as an alien, like, and I don't mean like from outer space. I mean just completely foreign, like the Soviet Union or China, which we very much view almost like very much China's someplace from another planet, right? That's how different I think we view them. Our
Yeah.
administration
Yeah.
views them, unfortunately. Um,
Right on.
yeah, so I think we'll go to great lengths to ensure that we stay on top, and those lengths can include uh, rough waves that I think the country could possibly go on. What do I mean by that? I mean just possibilities of conflict. I think um, I tried to normalize this the best I could. I think in a past video, and that was that like it's normal human behavior for civilizations that have different worldviews to sometimes clash, and perhaps that can end up in just simple Cold War rhetoric. Um, and I think something really terrible would have to happen in order for there to be like actual chaos in the world. So I'm optimistic that we will be okay, but I think yeah, the future I'm worried about. Yeah, definitely. But like I said, I'm glad we're here in our homes talking. So yeah, not that I'm trying to like sound like put any fear into this video or anything. Like I said, at the end of the day, most of us just want to live our lives and be happy, right? And I think that's for most people on the planet. So hopefully sanity and justice can prevail and we'll all be okay.
Oh, for sure. But I gotta mention, when you mentioned like, our goal of having us live our normal lives, like the positive note for us is we are past the age of the draft. So for us, if we don't feel like it joining the draft due to our duties, we don't have to. So if the draft ever actually comes, you know what I mean? So yeah.
That's the scariest part, I think, is that like let's take for example the Vietnam War.
Oh yeah.
So many Americans and obviously in Vietnamese like died in that war. And if you think that the people that were in higher levels of administrative power bear any responsibility or feel bad for sending Americans to essentially, in my view, perish, right? They don't, and they're still there. Or their descendants, as in their sons that maybe have those views, are there fulfilling that role. They never left. They never left the Pentagon. They never left any higher intelligence or any power. I'm not saying that like the government is bad itself. Like there's good people that very much want us to be okay, right? But there are, I think that yeah, that there's some bad people. I think that do hold very strong positions of power that can put us into a really scary situation, and they don't care. I would say, yeah, and it's
You're
that's I think the scariest part. But yeah, like I said, I try to remain optimistic. um, but so far, it's 2024. We're going into 2025, and I think we're doing okay. Yeah. But
almost
yeah,
like
you bring up. Sorry.
I just said it's almost October.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost October. Yeah, yeah,
So
it's almost October. What'd you say?
so fast.
Yeah, yeah, time really flies. Um, time flies when you're having fun. I guess.
Oh yeah.
But um, yeah, aside from that, I think we kind of discussed what we wanted to, talking about like the events we're passionate about and just like our overall, yeah, worldview. And
A lot of questions though.
you have some questions?
Yeah,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of questions for the live. So like, where do I start? Well, we got to talk about this one topic to start off: gentrification in Abiyala. Obviously, it's not fair when it happens to Canada and the USA, but nobody's really, well, not enough people are given a voice for Mexico and other parts of the society, like parts of the Abiyala. So let's see. I just learned that I think gentrification is already happening in Durango and Chihuahua. I'm not for sure, but that's what I heard. Um, but I know for a fact Mexico City, city of Oaxaca, and more parts of southern Mexico. And let me tell you what hurts even more. So, Quintana Roo is a state of Cancun and Tulum and other places. And in Quintana Roo, it's obvious there's gentrification and it's spreading to the state of Yucatan. But now I think it's spreading to Campeche. In Campeche, it's it's like maybe a 3 to 5 hour bus ride from Cancun. Well, from central Cancun, downtown. So it's not close by, but it is close by. But now that it's stretching over there, they better not gentrify all the way to Tabasco, which borders Campeche, because after Tabasco, you go to the state of Veracruz, and I've been to Veracruz, and I like how there's no gringification. Like almost every tourist in the Puerto Veracruz was literally from Mexico, and things were affordable, which that's good because it's good to do that for the people there. I don't like when places, they get gentrified, they raise their prices, and the locals suffer. Like, I don't care. I really don't care if you're like Thailand and you're like, okay, in this part of Mexico, we're gonna charge the tourists a lot, but the locals a normal price. I don't blame you. I accept that. But when it's like, oh, locals are struggling to pay rent, it's ridiculous. Like my personal trainer, he's an online trainer and he had to move to multiple places within Quintana Roo and Yucatan because they raised his rent extremely high. Like I can't make this stuff up, but it's really bad. But there's also a water crisis going on, and man, it's so many things that I could say, but not enough people are talking about it. But for the people that are talking about it, I'm glad they're doing that. But yeah, I obviously rambled on that because it's just so aggravating. So I don't know what have you heard about that, and just want to see your thoughts.
Sure. So for the most part, if I'm being honest, I haven't, obviously, gentrification has really affected a lot of people. Um, I haven't heard that much as I probably should have in Mexico. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Massawa. Um, I hope that, you know, a lot of spots, a lot of cities, tourist spots in Mexico can be visited more, like from Mexican tourists and others in other states over there. So the prices of things don't go absurdly high, right? Um, and then of course there's a lot of people from, especially from the U.S. that are like moving to a lot of places in Mexico that are really, um, yeah, jacking up the price too. Um, and Mexico's a beautiful country. I think it's just important to be aware that the despite them moving there, I think there's always pros and cons to everything. Yeah. So sure, are they moving there? Buying um, you know Mexican products, investing in the economy. Sure, but there's always, like I said, a con, right? And that is that like the prices will get higher for those in Mexico that aren't making as much or that are kind of living day by day, right? And it's important to highlight those problems, you know, and those issues that are happening. So I think I would give my view on that. I think I would need to do a little bit more research myself on more issues, yeah, with gentrification. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Absolutely, it's really necessary. And like, I love Mexico, but it's really classist. Like, as much as I love it, I benefited from the classism without wanting to, because I was privileged, right? Like, many people have white privilege. I had class privilege. Like, I'm a simple dude. I will ride public transportation almost every single time. I try my best not to ride Uber. I will walk. I'm that type of guy. So, and I dress just like a normal person. But because, there's not that many black people in most parts of Mexico, being black, I'm most likely a tourist. So, because of that reason, they don't think of me as a random immigrant, um, or a random refugee, I should say, right? Um, Refugees range in terms of socioeconomic status, but it's more obstacles they have to go through. So, with that being said, they just think of me as a tourist. So, that gives me the class privilege already. And especially once they hear me speak Spanish, like they still could tell, like I'm a gringo. So at the end of the day, yeah, it's a lot of classism there, and you'd be surprised. Like, I was, some of my friends were lawyers, right, that were from there, and I was like, why is it normal for so many people to be like against public transportation if it doesn't even cost that much and it's so simple? And then they're just telling me like, yeah, this is why, blah blah blah. It's really a class of society, and it's just like, wow. Like my friends who were lawyers, like obviously they were not classist, even though they benefited from classism like I did, but they knew for a fact that society is classist, man. People will avoid public transportation just to because they think, oh, that's for the poor people. You know what I mean? And obviously, in Mexico and Abya Yala, you'll notice that due to the oppression, more of the indigenous people are more likely to not really be in the upper echelon of basically classism. They exist there, but you know what I'm trying to say. So you'll notice the racial wealth gap there is incredibly bad, and I heard it's like one of the worst in the world too. But yeah, it really hurts to see, like you enter a country which is the fourth highest indigenous country in Abya Yala. Mexico is the fourth highest indigenous country. Yet, you'll notice they still have a lot of classism towards the indigenous people and the brown people, but especially the people who identify and practice and identify with their indigenous culture. So, yeah, it really hurt to see that. And especially because, I had the privilege of being born in Turtle Island, Abya Yala. I'm not indigenous at all, but the indigenous people have to really keep going through that.
Yeah. I appreciate every word you said, man. That means a lot. And you bring up really valid points that unfortunately, like I would say, yeah, classism seems like more of a problem in Mexico than sometimes in the US, I would say. I think in the US,
Complex.
yeah, yeah, it's complex. Um, but I mean, I feel like classism and ostracizing others seems to be almost brought down, like passed down, right? To feel like it's okay in Mexico, right? Like you have a lot of people in the higher elite class that says, "Oh, it's okay to discriminate against, indigenous people, or it's all right, like it doesn't matter," right? Um, or in my opinion, I mean, yeah, maybe it's just where I was brought up, but I feel like the US is trying to do like a better job. I think as the US becomes more diverse as well, right? I think the US is trying to do a better job in like eliminating that problem. Obviously, it's still prevalent. Um, or in Mexico, but it's a different issue though as well. Um, but I think, yeah, Mexico has a long way to go to eliminate that classism behavior. Um, I think in the media, and I think it is kind of passed down to have those views a little bit from certain people, right? From certain families that say it's okay. It exists. I'm not, yeah, trying to sugarcoat it. That's just unfortunately how things are. I think there can be change, but I think more people have to really understand the deep rooted problem, and that's from colonialism. It's a reflection from corruption. It's the reflection of how you believe you should be treated sometimes, and the treatment of indigenous people. So it's up to those that are not making an effort to really change that, and it's up to those and people in positions of power in Mexico to implement better ways to improve that, so there's no more problems, or the problems are greatly reduced in Mexico. And I think once you do that, when you remove that, you know, classist behavior and those views, then you can really improve society. You can make it a more welcoming and inclusive society for everybody. Um, I think, yeah, I think it will get better over time. I like to believe so. I think because you have a lot more. I mean, you have Yalitza and other indigenous men and women that are becoming, that are being in positions of, at least in like acting, where you have more of a representation for people that are of, like, brown skin, that have been discriminated against on a very large level since the country's existence. So I think that there is a push to, you know, bring that representation out, and that it's okay to look indigenous. It's insane that it's existed for so long, that the hatred and the condemnation just for being indigenous, just for looking, having dark skin. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of issues, and it's not just Mexico. Like, it's in other countries too, also in Latin America. But yeah, you bring out some really good points, Massawa. So I appreciate you saying that.
For sure.
And yeah, over time, I think things will improve. Yeah, I think it
Absolutely.
helps that the U.S. is right next to Mexico, where the U.S. is really trying to push a more harmonious, diversified society and inclusive society. Um, I think Mexico is, being connected to the U.S. Mexico, the government, in some ways, has tried to replicate that. I think they've made some strides, you could say, in doing that. But obviously, it's a long way to go. So,
Oh yeah, and that actually reminds me of something I said in TikTok once. Man, I'm excited for y'all. Like, let me tell y'all, indigenous folks, man, shout out to y'all. But I understand that it's unfortunate that you can't really see indigenous folks outside of Abya Yala. Let's face it. Yeah, you will see them, but you got to go above and beyond. We've been to Western Europe. We've been to Europe in general. We've been to Asia. I've been to Western Asia. You've been to West Asia and East Asia. And you know what we noticed? We almost never or never see indigenous people. I have seen indigenous people. And if I was an introvert, I probably wouldn't have the ability to talk to them. But thankfully, I knew I had to and I felt comfortable. So, yeah, I seen some indigenous people in Germany, one indigenous person from Ecuador in the Netherlands, and then Spain. Of course, there's indigenous people, right? But Italy, it was a short time, so I didn't see any indigenous folks. But yeah, like I hope one day, like you could see any type of Africans in any part of the world. You could see Indians as well as Chinese people in any part of the world. But the fact that you can't see indigenous people in other parts of the world, it hurts to see. Like you do see Chilenos and Argentinos in Australia. Their percentage is small, but their population exists. But even then, like it's not that many Mapuche or Guarani or Yagan people you will see in Australia, right? And then you'll see Chilenos, Argentinos, and like Europe too, but same concept. So at the end of the day, but the good thing about that is, of all places Mexicans and indigenous people are at, you will see indigenous people in the USA. Do you know what that means, bro? Mexicans, I believe they're at least 10% of the USA. So what that means is when you're a significant part of the USA, the USA, everybody wants to be a USA. And I'm not saying that it should be that way, but that's just how it is. So everybody knows about, oh my gosh, I want to be like that random famous black guy. But guess what? There's a lot of famous celebrities that have Mexican roots, but that's only going to go even higher because I'm telling y'all, man, like these Mexican rappers and Mexican American rappers, Chicano rappers, and just indigenous people in general, like it's only getting better. It's only getting better. Like I'm glad that y'all indigenous folks are a high percentage of the US of all places because this is the country of the most influence and the most wealth. When you put that together, it's unstoppable. Now, it's not going to be like it doesn't mean it's going to increase your community like because when famous people get rich, there's no guarantee the community will get rich. But at least it's better than like being famous in Australia. So, I'm just excited for the future of the indigenous people. Like I know it's 2024, we're supposed to have like indigenous people are supposed to be more famous than they already are, but I still see like the future is great. But that reminds me, in sports and reggaeton, I don't see a representation. So in reggaeton, for instance, why I know why, but like, why do you think you don't really see any famous reggaetoneros or like you'll see famous rappers that are Mexican, but in reggaeton you don't really see famous reggaetoneros. Yet, indigenous people or partially indigenous people are the highest ethnic group in Apia Yala in Latin America as well. So, I want to see what's your thoughts on why there's just no reggaetoneros. I mean, I know of some, but you know what I'm trying to say. No, really, really, really famous ones.
That's a good question. When you mean like in reggaeton, do you mean specific place? Are we referring to just like not the music, but we're referring to something else, or we are talking about the music? I'm sorry.
No problem. Basically, at least the reggaetoneros on the people that are really famous in reggaeton, like Mike Towers, Bad Bunny, and stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
None of them are actually like indigenous presenting.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like in Colombia, it's
Okay.
a diverse country, but they pick the whiter presenting people.
Yeah. I think I got your question. Thank you for
Oh,
explaining
cool,
that.
cool, cool, cool.
Yeah. I think it could kind of go all the way back to because I know a lot. You are right. Do happen to not really have that maybe representation that we think that we would likely see, right? It might have to do with, you know, the inter-rooted problem of like, classism, maybe not believing that, you know, indigenous people can make it that high in that specific type of music because, most of the I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say something I don't know, but I think it could be the kind of just the system where you don't think that maybe someone that's of indigenous descent maybe might do so well, or as well, you might not think in that specific type of industry, right? It could just also be because we're referring to like places where it's really popular in like Puerto Rico, right? Or in the Caribbean, where you're not likely to see as many, but obviously it's very popular in Mexico. Um, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
really good question.
it's really rising there. And I'm
Yeah,
surprised that Chicanos I know don't even know about these people.
yeah, yeah. It's I might have to answer that question a little bit later, myself, because right now I'm not sure if it's just because of how the structure is, where maybe those of indigenous descent aren't viewed so high in the music industry, or perhaps it's people that really are that hold high positions of power in the music industry that might have those possible discriminatory views, or it simply
Hmm.
could be because maybe because I don't want to say it's not as popular like with people of indigenous descent because it is popular there. So I might have to hold off on your question, Massawa, only because I might have to think about it a little bit more.
It's complex and nobody talks about it. So I completely get it. By all means, feel free to. It's I completely get that. But as somebody who played basketball growing up, and basically I know a shortcut that I can't discuss here, but I know a shortcut to playing professional basketball overseas. So it's still my goal at the end of the day. So as somebody whose basketball is big for me, I didn't grow up with like representation in basketball. Racially, I obviously did, but I didn't grow up with people I could relate to. So, for example, I'm a short. Oh, the height question. Wait. Do you remember what we were talking about? If you want, how tall did you think I was, and how tall do you think I am now that I kind of commented to your question?
Now that you've revealed, no, I'm kidding. I think okay, so I thought because yeah, you were into basketball, I figured you were like, I mean, this is just I thought maybe you're like 6'2" or like 6'3", but I mean, I know that there's people that aren't like 6 foot that are professional basketball players, but it's just a guess, right? So yeah,
Yeah. Okay. But what did you think afterwards when I was like, oh yeah, I'm not tall?
5'11",
Wow,
5'10".
base. Wow. So yeah, I'm 5'9 3/4. So 5'10 is correct.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
Wow. Yeah, man. But growing up, like in the NBA and just famous basketball players, for the short people, you don't, for the most part, you don't notice short people. Like if people are immigrants or children of immigrants, they're usually super tall that like succeed in basketball. Um, so that being said, like yeah, most people who succeed are like tall if they're like immigrants or like children of immigrants. And it's not a bad thing or anything. It's just somebody, my parents immigrated here and I can relate to that. And most of the world plays soccer. My ancestors, they either do soccer or they run cross country because we're gifted for cross country. We do marathons, we win them all the time. Um, so I didn't have people like in that sense, you know what I mean? And I'm also short, but basically, even from all of Africa, East Africans, not just the Horn of Africa, but East Africans don't even play basketball much. Now we're catching up, but we don't. So I see West African representation, and like I like it, but I couldn't relate to it for the most part. So, but now that's improving, especially in Canada. East Africans and people from the Horn of Africa are really, even the short people, like they're really improving, and they're making history. There's this one professional guy who's 6'1", so he's from my country. He got an NBA workout invitation to from the Oakland City Thunder. And even though I mean, Oklahoma City Thunder, even though he didn't even ask for it, they just invited him. So he was that good. And he's only 6'1". Um, and I know of other Muslim hoopers too, even though that guy wasn't Muslim, but still. But I mentioned that to say there's a lot of indigenous people that live in the East Coast and Florida, like the indigenous South Americans, Central Americans, but especially in Cali and the West Coast and Texas, Arizona, New Mexico. So, but in the East Coast, where I come from, almost every indigenous person does not play basketball, even though they hang out with black people. But in the West Coast, you'll find indigenous people playing basketball. They play Division One. They play they play Division One for college. They'll play into NCAA in Texas, Cali, you name it. But the Mexicans and other similar people in the East Coast, they just don't play basketball much. So I don't know. Have you ever noticed that in no basketball and football, USA football, Mexican and other indigenous representation is very low? Have have you noticed that, and how do you feel about it? Because nobody talks about that either.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say with basketball, it may have to just come down to the unfortunate reality of genetics, where
Wait, height or genetics in general?
I think height. Yeah,
Oh,
with
okay, okay.
if you talk about NBA professional, then I think yeah, there's a few, right? There's a few like indigenous or like Mexican or anyone from the Abiyala that play NBA, but majority of them, are either black, white, and maybe you'll have like a few Asians.
Really? Yeah.
And So I think it could have to do with genetics. I mean, I'm not saying that like I mean, obviously there's a lot of tall people. Like I'm almost 6'3".
Incredible.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not that coordinated. So it might just have to do with the more because soccer, right? Uh, in everywhere else besides the US is quite popular, like in Peru, Colombia, in Brazil, in Mexico. It might be more hyper focused on in the US, but I think that football and well, basketball, I don't know. That's true. It may have to come down to genetics. Let's come back to this question, I think maybe
Yeah,
10 years from now and see if it's
I
improved
totally get
more
it.
so. But with football though, I think football has become more popular in Mexico. I remember I was in Cancun, and as I was like driving to my hotel, I saw like one or two football fields. They were football fields on
Wow.
campuses. I was like, okay, that's neat. And I know that there are football teams in Mexico, and it's the same with Brazil as well. There was just an NFL game that was held in Brazil,
Wow.
so it is you know, it does have a lot of attention, I would say, in Brazil and Mexico. I can't speak for the rest of the countries. I think soccer is still quite popular, um, but definitely football. It's interesting how different sports has really affected um, other countries in terms of like the popularity, right? So, for example, in Japan, baseball is really popular. In China, basketball's really popular. Same with Philippines as well. Basketball is popular too. Um, Even with Cuba, it's baseball that's popular. So it's interesting how much of an influence the U.S. has played over the past century, century and a half. So yeah, it's I would say let's see how things go with basketball maybe in maybe 5 to 10 years, and maybe we'll see more representation. But I think it just comes down to soccer being still pretty popular. Um, it may come down to genetics, as much as I don't want to say that because I always I but I think in a way because obviously like in the NBA, you have to for a lot of people they're like 6'2", 6'5", or higher, right? And for people of native descent, I have seen a few tall indigenous people, like one that's like 6'5" one time. And I know like in Argentina, I heard there was like some Mapuches that were pretty tall too. I
Wow.
know like there was like a Spanish explorer that visited like the southern part of Argentina, and he met a community, or he saw a community where all the men there were like extremely tall, like 6'4", 6'5", or something.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it's nice to see that height. But I mean, it's cool, either height, either if you're shorter or taller, it's fine. But yeah, I would say it has to do with a lot of things. It could also stem from culture as well. But I think that if you're growing up here in the US, then football does become increasingly popular because American football is the most popular sport in the US right now.
Oh wow.
Uh, I think it will be in the foreseeable, yeah, future. Yeah, I think because the NFL is like all over the place, right? And I think that that encourages a lot of young men to play all different from all different backgrounds of life. Um, so that's why I think it would be so popular for people that want to play. And I have seen a few. Wait, no, I've seen a couple. There was a center that was of Mexican descent that played for
Yes.
the Chicago Bears, um, Roberto Garza.
Oh, I
Um,
forgot about him. Okay. I was thinking of Horacio Llamas.
okay, I haven't heard of. Maybe I have.
I like him. I think we
Yeah,
spoke a bit on Instagram, but yeah, I really like him. I want to meet him one day.
yeah.
That's all
Okay, yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, I remember now.
I did.
Did we did? Was a Mexican, right? Or no, he wasn't.
Yeah, but all right. We talked about two people. We
Two
talked
people.
about somebody Gutierrez, who was like probably the only short Mexican in the NBA that like killed it. I might have heard about Lindy Waters. That's pretty cool. Wait, Lindy Waters in the WNBA. The WNBA has more representation. I'm not gonna lie, and I think that's really cool. It inspires like the little girls like growing up. That play that sport. So,
Yeah, definitely. Thanks,
but
Big Game.
wow, huh?
I was saying thanks, Big Ant. He left a comment. It's like, oh,
Oh,
thanks. Yeah.
awesome. I will say though, the other player I mentioned that we talked about, Orlando Valdez Mendes, bro, he deserved to be in the NBA. That's my opinion. He was, if you, his professional career was outstanding as well, but I think he took his team to the Final Four. I'm not sure, but he played for West Kentucky University. He's from San Antonio, Texas. This dude, Mexican descent, American, right? I'm telling, he fried. He fried, folks. He's only like 6'1". I don't know. I feel like he inspired a lot of people. Like we have no genetics at all that are the same, but as somebody whose parents immigrated here and I'm 5'10", he really inspired me. And now he went back to his ancestral country, Mexico, and he pretty much he he's the GM of the G League team over there of Mexico City. Like that's he made history on a basketball court. And now he's making history in terms of real positions of leadership. Like that says a lot. Like being a coach would be amazing and that's cool. But GM, GM, like it's historical, man. Like I'm really proud of this dude. Never met him, obviously, but like I don't know. I'm just surprised people don't talk about this. I just research this stuff on my own, but it's incredible. It's incredible, man. Like, and I think there's a lot of players like him that play D1, that played into the best divisions of the NCAA, played on TV. You know, were good enough for the NBA. I think there's a lot of Mexicans like that that actually did all that. So, and they're going to keep on increasing. So I think they're going to end up in the NBA eventually. But yeah, I mean, I have seen some half Mexicans play in the NBA, and that's pretty cool. None of them were actually like, I mean, all of them were actually like very tall, like 6'6" or higher. So, but that's still impressive, honestly. The NBA is extremely hard, but yeah, like it'd be nice to see like a 6'2" indigenous person, Peruvian, Mexican, Bolivian, Guatemalan, like just like slide in the NBA. But at the end of the day, even without that, like seeing more of them like play pro overseas, even though they do play overseas, but seeing more of them because y'all could really y'all got a lot of potential. Like y'all are really good, but y'all could really like skyrocket.
Give me 20 years for my kids to grow up, and then maybe we'll have some more donkey.
Shoot, they got my support.
Yeah,
I might be their agent. Who knows? All jokes aside.
maybe one day.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Um, but yeah, that was some good points that you brought up. That's great that that guy's a GM. Yeah, definitely in the world of sports, it's really interesting how different like demographics of people seem to be in like other sports more so compared to others. For example, basketball, baseball, in American football. I think when we were talking about centers, I was talking about the center in American football. Maybe we were referring to the center in basketball. I think that's where we ran into some confusion.
that's exactly why.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
should have been more specific. It's my fault. Um,
life happens.
yeah. Um, but yeah, did you want to bring up any other questions that you had, or if not, then we can open it up to the if the chat has any questions.
Yeah, actually, I think all the stuff's off my mind, so I'd be happy to interact with the chat.
Sure, sweet. Um, chat audience, if you guys have any questions for us before we close this out, we'll leave it open for a few minutes, and then we'll probably wrap this up. But it has been a really good conversation, Massawa.
Sincerely, and thank you. I agree. I ain't gonna lie, there is a few so we did like check out the comments, but it was kind of hard. Like some of them actually included questions, so I'm about to look through as you're looking through as well.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. If you
Awesome.
guys have questions about what we just talked about, whether if that's traveling, sports, or any other events that we discussed, feel free to just bring it up and try to answer it the best we can.
Shout out to Kat. Kat mentioned that the settlers in Israel are not really Israeli. They're from the Americas and Europe, and I agree. Like they're from Abia Yala and Europe, and like don't get me wrong, they do have Jewish ancestry, but it's probably like 15%, and the rest is just straight up European. So shout out to Kat for that. I tried to show it on stage. I don't know if it went up, but yeah.
Oh, did it show
Honestly,
it?
what happened?
I'll try to oh, did you say you tried to show a comment or
Yeah, I
okay.
clicked the proper button, but
Okay, I didn't know you had the ability to show comments too. That's cool.
oh, maybe
Because I
so. I
can
don't know.
okay, I can share them, but, oh, Kat said thanks.
Oh, awesome, incredible. I ain't gonna lie though. Kat did also say the elections is like warmonger, warmonger one versus warmonger two. Honestly, I'm voting for Jill Stein, but like at the end of the day, like he got a good point, and you know, Kat was saying like vote third party. You know what I mean? Um, Thomas also said like they're gonna vote for Cornell West, but then he left the Greens. So you doing vote? You're gonna vote for Jill Stein like I am. Yeah, and for many good reasons. Wow, too true.
Yeah, no, appreciate you sharing that, Massawa, and thanks, Kat, too, for the comments. Yeah, I think Jill Stein tried to run a while ago as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
For real. Wait,
um,
why did Victoria say excuse me earlier in the chat? I don't see what she did wrong.
I think maybe she had a question. Um, I had a question earlier. Yeah,
Oh,
if you had a
no
question,
problem.
feel free to ask because there's a lot of comments. I'm trying to sort through them and maybe find it.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, and I think yeah, I think I definitely remember that. Yeah. Wow.
Just trying to go through here to see, but
Mm.
I don't think I
Wow.
can find it. So, Victoria, if you want to type that comment really quick, you can. Um, but aside from that, so usually, yeah, towards the end, I would like put in a link to like people that want to talk with us after the stream's over. But I think maybe because of time restraints, we might just be able to just chop it up between you and me, Masawa, and then
Got it.
definitely. Let's see. Anyone have any other questions? Yeah,
All right.
maybe not. But yeah, um, definitely maybe we can have you on again.
Hey,
Because
thank you.
it's been fun for sure. Um,
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to. It was really fun for real.
yeah, yeah, it was
Oh, I
good.
ain't gonna lie. I hate to interrupt you, but I landed upon Victoria's question though.
You did. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
so at
Nice.
9:28, if you look for the comments from 9:28 p.m., that's where you'll find it. I would put it on the thing, but
Oh,
yeah,
this
perfect.
one.
Thank you. Yes.
Sure. In the comment, the Panama Canal has a social economical impact.
Wow. Um, my answer is brief. I don't know much about it, but I'm assuming it would do more harm than good, mostly tons of harm. But you probably know more than me, so I want to see your answer. But that's all I have.
Mm, thanks. I don't know as much, but I do know that there was plans for. I thought in the past there was plans for another like um canal in Panama or something of that nature where it was between China, I think, and Panama, but I don't think it worked out. But yeah, I do know that it's really affected a lot of people living there, indigenous people, and those that weren't indigenous too, that were living around that area, and their homes were either destroyed or they had to move forcefully, be removed. So um, it's definitely sad, and obviously the nature as well, animals, the environment. There was a lot of destruction that happened for that canal to be created. Um, so I just hope that people can realize that yes, the canal exists, but it did come at the cost of people's living and animals living as well. Um, so definitely, it had a large impact, I would say, especially for the indigenous people that live there. So thank you for bringing that up, Victoria.
Thank you.
Yeah. But aside from that, let's see here. Anything else? The people of profit. Yeah, the people in power. Yep, definitely.
Absolutely.
In
It
America.
hurts.
Yeah. Mexicans, anyone from Latin America? Ivan.
Wow.
Okay, cool. Nice.
Well,
That's
that's a
good.
positive thing to know.
Yeah, it's
Actually,
good height.
yeah, there's this one guy who's a Salvadoreño and half Filipino who's doing well in football. So he has a good chance of playing D1 and then going to the NFL.
Oh, that's great. Wow,
Yeah.
that's really good. Nice, good Asian representation too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
yeah,
for real.
cool. Good. Well, yeah, I think we'll probably close this stream now. It's at a good time, an hour and 45 minutes. So, audience, thank you for coming on. Leaving comments is always appreciated. If you guys like the video, please give it a like. If you're new, subscribe. Of more content soon, and then also please follow Massawa too. I think I've posted your Instagram, so let's check
Thank
out his content as well. So, and again, Massawa, thank you so much for coming on and giving your time.
you. Thank you as well. I thank y'all, the audience. Y'all were so awesome, interactive, and positive. So it's just nice to be, you know, in a sense, like, how can I say it? Part of the community in a sense, like, part of the community in a sense where, part of the community of empowerment. So in that sense, it felt great. And it felt great overall, just, just a good brotherhood at the end of the day. My brothers and sisters out here for empowerment. So I'm grateful and happy. So thank you again to the audience, and thank you, Marcus, for real. I'm really grateful to be on the IP Indigenous podcast. Y'all are positive folks, for real.
Yeah, no, no, the pleasure is mine, Massawa. So definitely looking forward to have you on again. We can definitely share some more knowledge. So yes, but
For
yeah,
sure, for sure.
yeah. But let's talk a little bit after, and yeah, definitely for those watching, have a good night or a good morning. So see y'all later. See ya.